But I think if I fully destroy the corruption and the graft, they will kill me.
That's a fucked up thing to live with.
Yes.
Elon Musk just shook the woke establishment to its core, and they are losing their minds. In a recent podcast with Joe Rogan, he exposed trillions of dollars in fraud tied to the elites, and the fallout is nothing short of explosive. This might be the most shocking revelation yet. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. By the end of this video, you'll see exactly why these corrupt elites and their media puppets are in full panic mode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, let's get into it.
Everybody should be celebrating that we've found a way to cut out fraud and waste.
Yeah.
If you pay taxes and you don't like that you have to pay so much in taxes, and then you find out that there's significant fraud and waste that's been exposed, you should be celebrating it. This shouldn't be, oh no, the wrong people found this fact and now it's a bad thing.
Yes.
And then there's the fucking propaganda, the mindfuck of calling it USAID.
Yeah.
Instead of the United States Agency for International Development. It sounds like it's feeding hungry people.
Right.
People are going to starve, Elon. This is horrible. And then you find out, actually, it's like $250 million for transgender animal studies. Like,
yeah,
it's like
literally mutilating.
Guys, this is just the appetizer. Wait until you get the full buffet. What you're about to hear is absolutely mind-blowing. Wait, did I just hear transgender animals? Are they seriously trying to make animals transgender now? That's beyond ridiculous. What could they possibly hope to gain from this that would benefit anyone?
$1.9 billion sent to their NGO, which basically got formed about a year ago and had no prior, no prior activity. So they just stand up a, NGO. The whole NGO thing is a nightmare, and it's a misnomer, because if you have a government-funded non-governmental organization, you're simply a government-funded organization. It's an oxymoron.
right. It's a loophole.
Yes. It basically, the government-funded NGOs are a way to do things that would be illegal if they were the government, but are somehow made legal if it's sent to a so-called non-profit. But these non-profits are then used to, people cash out these non-profits. They become very wealthy through non-profits. They pay themselves enormous sums through these non-profits.
It's so insane that that's been going on for so long.
It's a gigantic scam.
And you know what? Doge is out here doing the real work, calling out government fraud and waste, while the woke media pushes distractions and scrambles to cover up their own failures. No matter who you are, if you're a citizen, it's time to wake up and see the truth unfolding right in front of you. And the craziest part, this is all happening because of the government's biggest weakness: terrible communication.
So crazy, it's like only the federal government can get away with this level of waste. It's mostly waste. It's mostly not fraud. It's mostly waste. It's mostly just ridiculous things happening.
Because they've been able to do it this way for so long. They've become accustomed to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Milton Friedman said, like, money is most poorly spent when you're spending someone else's money on people you don't know. How much are you going to care?
Right.
And that's the federal government. So they're spending someone else's money on people they don't know.
It's honestly sad watching these people lose their minds over things that aren't even real. And just to set the record straight, Biden was the one who signed off on all that money. But instead of focusing on that, they're still obsessing over Elon Musk while he's out here exposing massive government waste and fraud. That's exactly why the elites at the top despise him. They know he's pulling back the curtain on their corruption. So now, they're doing everything they can to spread misinformation about him.
Is that the various government databases, they don't talk to each other. They talk to each other very poorly, in a very limited way. So the way that the system gets exploited is by taking advantage of the poor communication between the various databases in the government. To give you an example of like what's happening, say, Treasury, which is improving rapidly. The main payments computer is called PAM, like payment accounts master database or something like that, but everyone calls it PAM. That's responsible for almost $5 trillion of payments a year, roughly $1 billion an hour. And when we came there, we're looking at the payment. It's like the payments have no. You could put a payment through with no payment categorization code and no description on the payment, like basically untraceable blank checks. This is the kind of thing that if it was done as a public company, the company would be immediately delisted and the executive team would be thrown in prison. But this is just normal at the government.
I have to ask, how has no one been tracking this fraud for years? Even after all this exposure, you know the woke crowd will just find another distraction to cover up what's really happening. This is massive corruption, plain and simple. Honestly, I feel for the hardworking taxpayers in the US who are being robbed blind, and if you still can't see what's happening, well, at this point, you're just choosing to ignore reality.
They certainly didn't vote for Elon Musk. And so what I do want to point out is that Elon Musk is allegedly responsible for the DOGE, which is the Department of DOGE. It's the Department of Government Efficiency. And it was started to root out waste, fraud, and abuse, right? Now, let's talk about waste. We're still waiting for Elon's group, even though the White House now says he's not in charge of the group, to identify real government waste, because they claim that they saved $55 billion. Well, that is false. The itemized data shows it's far less, and in fact, a post-analysis found that hundreds of these canceled contracts that they listed as representing savings, there were savings of $0. So that's the first thing.
And the numbers were way off.
And the numbers were way off.
How come they don't list their contracts?
That's my second point.
Oh,
fraud. Now, Musk's own companies have been promised or awarded nearly $21 billion by the U.S. government since 2000.
3121. Okay. That is the congressional.
One thing I want to say is whenever they're talking about this haphazard chainsawing to the federal agencies, we talk about the fact that Trump was elected for the idea, one of the ideas was cutting this waste. But the voters didn't say how, the scope, and the pace at which it would happen.
And real waste.
Because right now, the adequate way to do this would be to give it a few months, learn these agencies, because you cannot identify the problem until you know the entire operation. And that's not what we're seeing here, which is why we're seeing this drop in not only ratings, but the pushback on the Republican congresspeople. They're in these town halls, and what they need to be reminded of is Donald Trump didn't elect them to office. The voters in those rooms elected them to office. And in 2 years, when the midterms come up, they're going to notice, because right now we've seen like Jesse Waters and Fox say, oh, well, we wanted the waste cut, but not the veterans. And then like Zachary Levi said something like, some of these people voted for you. He's a president for everyone. And when you criticize what's happening here, you have to recognize that you have people that are taking orders from Elon Musk, who wasn't elected, but then their own administrative heads